I'm Geoff, a professional actor, part-time realtor, and transplant to the Springford area. And I'm on a mission to find the best that Springford has to offer. I'll be interviewing local business owners, civil servants, and other prominent members of the community to find out what makes Springford a great place to live, work, eat, and explore. I invite you to join me on my journey as I discover Springford. Hey everybody, welcome back to Discover Springford. I'm sitting here with Janet Miller Eveland, the founder of Julia's Grace Foundation, a local nonprofit here in the Springford area that's dedicated to helping bring happiness to children with cancer and their families. Janet, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, no problem. So, as I always do in episodes, I'd like to go back to the personal journey. Obviously, this nonprofit is a very personal journey, but why don't you take the viewers back to let them know where you grew up and how you ended up in this area?
Sure. I grew up in Philadelphia, as you can tell by my accent. And when my husband and I got married, we were both working outside of the city in different areas and looking for a really good school district for our kids to go to. And we had an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time. And so Springford was ideal. It was centrally located for us and a great school district, so that's why we came here.
That's great. And about when was that?
It's about 23 years ago,
wow.
So I actually feel like I was born here now.
Yeah, it's kind of overlapped now,
Yes.
or like the majority of your time has been here in one spot. So you have 3 children, correct?
2.
Yeah, 2.
2 older boys who are grown and have careers of their own, and then we had a younger daughter, Julia. So how much of an age gap was there? 13 years in between our youngest son and our daughter. It was definitely a surprise and a gift. We were not expecting
Right.
that to happen.
So what line of work were you and your husband in?
So my husband and I were both in restaurant work.
Oh, okay.
And have since left. So the business, and it's hard to have kids and be in restaurants.
Yeah,
For
I can't
both of us,
imagine.
it was a little difficult. And so now we work in different parts of the business.
Okay.
So.
One of the things that I've interviewed quite a number of people who have been in the restaurant business as well. It's a pretty common theme in this area. There's plenty of great places to eat. And I do understand just from talking to them that you kind of have to give your entire life to that. It's crazy.
And it's long hours and holidays and weekends. And so it makes it difficult to have that, normal life to be able to attend kids' functions at schools. You miss out on a lot. Yeah,
you're working when everybody else is on recreation.
Exactly.
Basically. That's why you're there, because on their leisure time, they're coming to the restaurant and stuff. Yeah.
So we both made a little bit of a switch, and I do some project management work for a company that does do food service.
Okay. So still a little bit in the industry.
Still a little bit, yeah. We keep our toes in it a little bit.
That's right. So tell us a little bit about Julia.
Sure. So she was a wonderful little girl, probably wiser. I can't even say that she was a little young girl. Yeah. She was so wise in her. And she was diagnosed with a Wilms tumor, which is a type of childhood kidney cancer, right after her 5th birthday.
Oh, okay.
And so she was treated at CHOP, and from the minute she was diagnosed, she came out of the hospital the first time and said, "How do I help the other kids?"
Wow.
And so after her first set of treatment, she decided to form a Relay for Life team, and we did that. And then she unfortunately relapsed several times. The cancer spread. And so, but all through it, she was looking about how I can do something for the other children.
That's incredible.
Her birthday, we had a party, all the gifts, everything had to go to CHOP, and she wanted to make sure that she had toys to bring the other kids. So she really set the tone of everything for what we do from Julia's Grace Foundation. And one night I was sitting in bed with her, and we were laying in bed cuddling, and she turned to me and she said, "Mom, do you ever get sad and blue?" And I said, "I do." And she said, "Well, I have a list and I want you to write it down." And as kids can be, she was very, very determined that I was going to write this list down. And she was 8 years old. So I got the paper and pencil, not to cause any problems. And she said, "Okay, I want you to listen. Number one, grab a friend and have a lunch date. And Julia went through 10 things to do to make you happy, and really simple things. Watch a funny movie, think about puppies, hear some nice music, and the last thing on her list was give someone a hug. A few days later, Julia died.
Oh, man.
And so that moment explains Julia better than anything. Because she did always worry about everyone else. And she was trying to tell us and show us that we could still be happy. So my husband and I knew we were going to start a nonprofit, one way or the other. We were going to make sure that we could carry on Julia's legacy. And this just solidified what we would do.
Right.
And so it's really all about how we can bring happiness to families and to children at what seems like the worst of times.
Yeah.
But you can still, even when it's really bad, you can still find a time and a way to smile. So that's what we do.
That's incredible. To think about the fact that a 5-year-old child knew what a Relay for Life team was amazing enough, but
that's true.
But to then immediately have the resolve to dedicate her time and make her mission to bring happiness to others.
Yeah, she was always really determined. She would have her chemo, and when she was done chemo, she'd find a way to entertain the kids. Whether it was putting on a puppet show. I remember setting up, and they turned a bookcase that was there, and she put on a puppet show with one of the child life workers at the CHOP.
Wow.
And so that the other kids were entertained as they were getting their chemo.
Yeah.
So little things like that she was always doing, and finding a way to just make somebody smile.
Right.
So
I can imagine you spent countless hours and days down in the city.
Yeah, in the city, and also King of Prussia.
King of Prussia.
Yeah,
okay,
they have they do a lot of outpatient chemotherapy in the King of Prussia office at CHOP.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So building the relationships. Were there a lot of was there a lot of interaction with, or should I say, repeated interaction with a lot of kids that were also going through the same things that she built up relationships
she
with?
actually created some friends while she was there, and they would meet, at chemo and sit and play or talk, and definitely relationships with the nurses and the doctors. It's amazing how these people can work with children like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if I could do it all the time, but they create such a bond, and it becomes your second family, and you spend so much time, nights and weekends, and you see them over and over again, and the families, because you get to meet families that are going through what you're going through, and but the children never seem to, they don't think of it that way. They're still kids. They still play. They still have fun.
Yeah.
Us as adults, we sit and we take the worry.
I can't imagine. Yeah, like you would think that after a while they would just become detached from the work that they're doing, but to still invest and build relationships with these children that they know are going through something so difficult. That's just an incredible.
They really do love each and every one of them. It's, they're saints on earth.
Yeah.
I really feel that way.
My uncle is the full-time chaplain at St. Christopher's Hospital for children, and just hearing, the terrible stories and the experiences that he's had to share because he's the chaplain for the whole hospital, so he deals with emergency, urgent care. Like so, it's as immediate tragedy. It's long-term, either hospice or dealing with all that kind of stuff, and he, as far as I can tell, has never lost his passion and vigor to minister and to reach every family, and to know that there are people that are called to that type of service, whether it's in medicine or bringing happiness. That is just an incredible calling, and one not to take lightly. And I think it's really interesting that a lot of those 10 items they required like human interaction,
right?
Because we can sometimes isolate ourselves when we're having a pity party, or we don't want to deal with people when we're going through a trial or something difficult. But someone so young understands that human contact, human interaction, physical, emotional, is such a healthy, or it's a salve to the pain, or a balm.
Yeah, just to grab your friends and go out for lunch, or
And food's involved, which is always
yes,
good
which
too.
is not a bad thing
Yeah, right.
at all. One is think about your children, which is very special to me.
Yeah.
That she would add that to the list, and we actually have something that we do for that. And we, because CHOP is so special to us, we actually supply the palliative care team, or what they call their PAC team. It's the team of workers that come in when your child does go into hospice, and they have an art therapist. And Julia became very close to our art therapist and made artwork and drew things, stuff with model magic, all through while she was in that time period and that transition. And then she told us who they were Christmas gifts for, so we gave them to everybody at Christmas after she passed.
Wow.
But think about your children. What we've done is we supply CHOP with all of the supplies they need for pottery to be made, and then we pay for fingerprint jewelry, so that if a parent is losing a child, they can have a fingerprint and they have a piece of jewelry they can wear all the time.
So the fingerprint is it an impression? Or,
an impression of the child's finger, and some are combined with parents. They get to design it themselves.
Oh,
so.
wow. That's incredible. I know, I mean, not on the same level, but one of our cats, when they were put down, they did a paw print, like an impression, and it was sweet. But to have a fingerprint and that unique, the fact that fingerprints are so unique, that's just such an incredible treasure to keep and to think about those things, as something you wouldn't necessarily think about in the moment, but then to have it to be able to refer back to. That's really cool.
And you do smile after a while, in the grief. You can smile sometimes.
Yeah, you think about the impact and the time that you had, rather than dwelling on the time that you don't. I would imagine, hopefully, or over time.
Yep. And we have other boxes that we do based on Julia's list. So we have a think about puppies, which we actually have a stuffed puppy in a book that is about puppies by Sandra Boynton. Here's some nice music, watch a funny movie. We actually give red box gift certificates and movie candy and popcorn, because often when you're being treated, you can't go to the movies because of being in touch with too many people. So that way they can have a movie night at home as a family. So we always try to make it a family event for them.
So just to clarify, like the 10 things that Julia outlined, you use those 10 things to develop a way to bring happiness to somebody else. So there's a category for each of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So we have something planned for everything on the list. So
that's really cool. And just to also clarify, one thing about your nonprofit that I found particularly interesting is that your emphasis is on bringing happiness and bringing that human interaction and bringing comfort to people in the midst of these things, which is slightly different, and I think really interesting to highlight, because sometimes when we think about nonprofits, we think about like the boots on the ground, like they're getting in there and they're lobbying for this or that, and they're doing things, and then I think sometimes the people get not forgotten, but we don't take the time to stop and interact and to focus on that. And they're all valid and they're all amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always a reason for research. There's definitely always a reason for research, and advocacy, which is one of our pillars too. We really actually have two pillars, happiness, and then our GRACE program, which helps families financially in the Philadelphia area and southeastern Pennsylvania area. And then advocacy is always an important thing, for us to worry about.
Can you describe a little bit the Wilm tumor? Is that what you said it was?
It's Wilm's tumor.
Is it a common occurrence, or is there?
There's about 500 of them a year diagnosed in the United States. It is. They actually, and I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It's no cancer is good, but it has what they call a 95% cure rate, which means 5-year survival after 5 years. Unfortunately, when Julia was diagnosed, it had already started to move into other areas of her body, but they do have a lot of luck between radiation and chemotherapy, which is good. It's a solid tumor, so a little bit different. Leukemia is the most common form of cancer, but this is a solid tumor cancer.
So in the advocacy that you do, is there a lot of emphasis on that specific type of cancer,
No,
or do you just
I think
bring in all types?
It's any type of childhood cancer. The important thing to remember is our government supplies the NIH with the National Institutes of Health a budget, and there's a budget in NIH for cancer research. Only 4% of the money for cancer research goes to childhood cancers.
Wow.
And not one type, but all types of childhood cancer. It's really not enough. Children are being treated with drugs that adults are treated with. They're growing. They're little. I'm not a doctor, but we need to have more drugs that are specified to a child and childhood cancer.
For sure.
And so that's a lot of what we try to educate and talk about, is the need for funding for the research, because I am a firm believer that they are going to find the cures. But we just need to make sure people understand that we have to have that type of research.
And specialize in the pediatric side, not just a blanket thing that we throw money at it. Like, it needs to be something that is, people are equipped with the proper tools that they need. Definitely. So that is that's a part of your foundation as well, in addition to the interaction and the providing comfort and happiness, and then the grace portion, which is actually meeting financial needs. That's really
that's
cool.
always important. It's devastating what happens to families. My husband and I were very lucky that we kept our jobs while Julia was sick. She didn't have many hospitalizations.
Wow.
Until the end. And I was able to work remotely, so I never missed a time that she was in chemo, and I was able to work and bring my computer and work. But that's not how it is for a lot of families. And there's other siblings to think about, and their child care. There's so many pieces that go into it, and families really have financial burdens. And so how can you be happy with that weight on you? So we help to pay bills, and non-medical bills. We worry about, how do we pay for an electric bill or a phone bill or gas to get back and forth to the hospital when you need to. There are expenses that you don't think about.
Because I think, sometimes people, they think about the medical bills, but they don't think about the fact that everything else is going on the back burner while they deal with the medical bills. And those are things that immediately impact them, like their water getting shut off or their phone being shut off or something like that. That's great. Just that, again, I love the fact that you guys highlight the immediate need, whether it's a hug in the moment or sit down and eat lunch with somebody, or think about puppies. Like, there's an immediacy to that. That can, bring comfort and happiness in the moment, which is really important.
And there's an innocence to it. I mean, the list is really the list of an 8-year-old girl. But all of us can look at that and say, that works for me too. I'm far from 8 years old, and I can still sit and, think about my favorite things and bring a smile to my, face.
And it's like the song says, you think about your favorite things and then you don't feel so bad. Hope I don't have to license the use of that song just by mentioning yours. Oh well, not a big deal. But I think, can you tell me a little bit about how soon after everything happened did you come up with the idea and then start to actually move forward with the nonprofit?
So within a few weeks.
Really?
We actually knew we were going to do the nonprofit. We had talked about it prior to Julia passing, and she knew that we were planning a little bit. And when she gave us the list, it sort of just all came to us. We knew that what we were going to concentrate on. We just didn't know how we were going to do it. And so we've slowly developed things. We have the boxes that we send, and those boxes, probably about 3 years ago, we came up with this idea to send boxes. So they're sent to hospitals across the country. Families directly will come to us through the hospitals and ask for a box. We'll also take special hug requests. So we just actually had 2 children get bikes. So because
wow.
they wanted bikes, and that was something that their families couldn't afford for them. So we took care of that. So that developed as we grew as a nonprofit, those boxes actually developed, and we've shipped over 3,200 boxes now.
Oh my goodness, wow. And you
across
ship
the country.
across the country. Yeah, so it's locally based, but
Yes.
it is impacting people across the country. That's incredible.
Certain things we do are just local
Yeah.
to southeastern Pennsylvania, but those boxes go across the country.
That's really cool. Yeah, those are things that you can package and send, like the gift cards and things like that. And, the stuffed animal, I would imagine. Yeah,
Yes.
as long as it's not one of those giant ones you win at the fair.
No, it's
You
not.
can ship it. Yeah.
You're good.
So yeah, I mean, it's really an incredible story in that a lot of nonprofits that come out of tragedy are founded in the person's honor, or to bring, to let people know about this person. But for Julia to actually have given you guys the blueprint, that's an incredible story in and of itself. That she was thinking about other people and how that could reach beyond, whether she knew, how much time she had left, or that, the fact that she's like, here you go, here's the entire plan, written out, and then
I
you
don't know
guys just
whether
said
she had it as an entire plan.
Yeah,
but
well,
really, she really set what we could do.
Yeah,
and
that's really cool.
It's great that a piece of her is with all of it.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now you had mentioned before as well that she was very involved in her school, at Brook Elementary School here in Springford.
Yeah, she loved Brook.
Yeah. So, do you mind talking a little bit about how the school interacted with her as she was going through this time?
I mean, I can't say enough for the staff and her friends at Brook Elementary. It was amazing, and Julia went to school all the time. She did not want to miss any school, so she would go in, and if she had to lay down for a little bit, she would. But through it, they were always there. A fundraiser they held for her, and she donated all the money to CHOP, as Julia would. But as she got sicker, when she went into hospice care, she was in the hospital. She actually missed her Olympic day. She wasn't going to be able to attend Olympic day. And Julia wore these great hats all the time she was sick, and one was a zebra spandex hat with a big pink feather on it. And so for Olympic Day, all the kids at Brook Elementary wore pins that were made out of zebra duct tape with pink tips. And so that's our pin. Okay. And that's what we sort of use as that symbol for Julia, because it just makes me happy to see zebra in pink. And then after Julia passed, they actually have a buddy bench behind Brook Elementary that's dedicated to Julia, because she was that kid that always worried about somebody else, and did they have somebody to play with at recess, and she always made sure she reached out to someone. So they dedicated this bench where during recess a child can sit on the bench, and somebody will know it's a cue that they don't have somebody to play with. So they're able to see the child sitting there and run over and bring them into the fold to start playing. So it's very like Julia. It's also a beautiful butterfly that's zebra and pink, so can't go wrong.
Right.
But Brook was a very special place.
That's really interesting, and I'm glad to hear that rather than people shying away because of a lack of information or knowledge about a situation, they embraced and again, kind of what the nonprofit is all about. They provided bringing happiness and highlighting the joy that you can have in the midst of sorrow or in the midst of a tribulation. Yeah. That's so cool, and it's such a great, the fact that they were willing to honor her legacy with that bench is really an amazing thing.
Yeah, and they've stayed active with us and helping to us as a nonprofit. A lot of Julia's teachers have helped and are involved with the organization, and they're friends. Right. We just had an event. We have a yearly event called Julia's Palooza, and it's a celebration. Daytime, it's a child's fun fair or a family fun fair. At night, we have a beef and beer. So it's from morning until night. It's a long day for us. Right. But her friends now, actually, for the games for the kids, all of her friends come, and they're the ones running the games now and help to give their time. So it's a beautiful thing to see how they've stayed involved and help us.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it's been 5 years now.
Yes.
So these kids that were her peers are now teenagers,
Yeah.
and they're able to really understand the impact that they can have by giving their time through high school and onward. That's really, I've known people. My wife is a school teacher, but there was a young girl at the school that she used to teach in, similar situation. I think she had a brain tumor, but it impacted that class so much so that I think it was in second grade when that class graduated from high school and they did like the montage. They had kept her photos and you think about that that's 10 years later
to remember.
And that class still, for those that stayed in the school and went all the way to high school, that she was still as much a part of their class as she was when she was in second grade. That's an incredible thing, and especially exemplified in Julia. But the sensitivity that we don't necessarily give children credit for, and the foresight and the thoughtfulness. We look at kids and we say, they're always on their screens, or and it's like they're watching and they're learning.
They are.
Yeah,
and their involvement, and at the last event, the last Palooza we had, there were kids I haven't seen since Julia passed, and they came up and gave me a hug, and it was just so good to see them all.
Yeah,
coming
that's
up.
incredible. I know there's another nonprofit in the area that we've highlighted on the show where they specifically recruit young kids to do random acts of kindness.
Yep, I know all about it.
Yeah, simply positive kids. Yeah,
Julia would have been there.
Oh
believe
yeah, I'm
me.
sure. And
Yeah.
and one of the things was that a lot of the groups that she tried to get her own kids involved in wouldn't take them because they were too young.
Yep.
So she was like, no, so get them involved at 8, 9 years old, not just 14 and above or whatever.
Yeah.
So
her friends come and help us put together boxes when we assemble them.
Oh wow.
They help us organize things. So we're always really grateful to have anybody come help.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, outside of the boxes and things that you do in the Julia Palooza, are there other events that you guys hold on a regular basis?
Yeah, we always do a breakfast with Santa.
Okay.
So we have one coming up on the 15th of December.
Okay.
It's at Applebee's in Royersford from 8 until 10. So
Okay.
we'll be there bringing a little bit of happiness and also raising funds to help us continue that. So it'll be a fun day for everybody. We do designer bingos, which are a lot of fun for women. So we'll do those. So we try to have it. And we have an event in the summer called Waffalooza.
Okay.
One of Julia's things is to have waffles and ice cream.
Oh, okay.
So we do an event around waffles and ice cream with with a company that helps to supply waffles.
Oh, wow.
We do waffles and ice cream parties at CHOP and at some of the hospitals that we support. And so this company, Waffatopia, helps us and supplies all the waffles. So we do that event at their location in Conshohocken.
That's really awesome. Yeah. So if people were to want to get more information and they were to go to their website, what are some of the things that they would find on there that could be helpful?
Well, there's a lot of things. Our events will be listed. What we do is listed, so you can see what we do and have an understanding of that. There's also a blog. I kept a blog when Julia was sick, and then I've written after it, but it gives you a sense, if you read it, of what Julia was like. There'll be information on advocacy, so that you'll be able to see that too. And way to donate, obviously, because that keeps us going. We're an all-volunteer organization, so it's important for us.
Yeah, and we want all of those funds and people, time, whatever they can donate, their time, their talent, their treasure, as they say, the 3 T's. If you can give financially, if you can donate your time. If there's a specific talent that you have or connection that you have, and you can provide something like these waffle folks.
And that's what's happening.
So, there are so many things that you can do to get involved. And we will have the links below the video, as we always do. And the information will be on our website as well. And we encourage you to check it out. As we wrap up, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that it's all volunteer, just because people sometimes think they want to know where their money's going, all that kind of stuff, and it is. I mean, it's Janet, and it's whoever else wants to lend a hand on a regular basis. So, and she still works, and she works full time.
Yeah. Our house is a storage place for all the boxes. So because we don't want to rent something, but it's definitely a labor of love.
Right.
Yeah,
and I am pleased to see it and to carry on Julia's legacy and the fact that it so closely mirrors her as a person, from what I'm gathering, is really special. Really special. So anything else you can think about that we forgot to mention?
Just look at the site.
Yeah, check out the website.
Check out the website. You'll find out about Julia and see everything about her, and contact us if you want to get involved. We always look for help and support.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you that are watching this when it's first posted, get out to Breakfast with Santa at the Applebee's in Royersford to support Julia's Grace Foundation and to bring happiness to children with cancer and their families. Janet, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate it.
Great.
And thank you all for watching. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, you can find it on any podcast app by searching Discover Springford. Please check out the links below the video for Julia's Grace Foundation. And if you'd like to support the foundation, share this video with your friends and family so that they can be made aware of the work that they're doing. And you can also share this video to let people know about Discover Springford. You can support us that way as well. So thanks a lot for watching. Come back next week for another episode of Discover Springford. And until then, get out there on your own journey to discover what makes the Springford area a great place to live, work, eat, and explore.